Valentine's Day is just a few days away, so this candid conversation is centered around matters of the heart. Steve Jobs had this to say on the topic: if you haven't found it, keep looking. Don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. And like any great relationship, it just gets better and better as the years go on. So today, I have with me Pastor Chris Madden and LaMonica Madden, who has been a guest before. So they've been married for 8 years. They've made it over the 7-year mark. And so we want to ask them just a few things about their relationship and the steps they took. How did they find each other? And then when they found each other, what did they learn in 8 years? Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
So as I said, you've been married for 8 years. So you're here not as Pastor Chris and not as monetize your brand, but you're here as a relationship, I would call you, what? Experts, somewhat.
Sure.
For 8 years, anyway.
We're growing. Yeah.
Right.
So when we think about relationships, and of course this month of February is not only Black History Month, but we get into the weekend of Valentine's Day when people are thinking about doing things maybe special with that special person in their lives, or it could be just friendship type things. But in your case, think back 8 years ago. 8 years. What was it, ground floor, that you were looking for, and did you find it, or what?
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to go first, or you?
Yeah.
Ladies
I
always
can
first, right?
do it. So when I met Chris, I was at a place where I was practically done with relationships. I had just gotten out of one. I was like, Lord, I think I just need to chill. And
So were you on a sabbatical from relationships?
not on purpose, but I had gotten out of a relationship that was just a little bit too much for me. And in my prayer time, one of my favorite movies is One Night with the King, the story of Esther.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I was watching that movie, and the Lord began to speak with me, and He said, "You have not because you ask not." And I said, "Is that a challenge?" And so I called myself. So I said, "Okay, well, I'm going to go write down this impossible list." And I said, "Lord, I'm looking for X, Y, Z." And I tried to make it the most ridiculously impossible.
An outrageous list.
And I did not think it existed. I said, "Lord, you let me know when you've birthed him into the earth realm, because I'm sure he doesn't even exist yet." And then here he comes.
Can you tell us what some of the things that was on that list?
Yes.
I'd like to know.
What were you looking for?
So for me, it was very important for me to be in a relationship where the man was either equally as or more spiritually mature than me, because it was exhausting carrying the weight spiritually.
So
these
are ground floor
this
things.
was ground, like I need you to and I wanted someone who was not going to be intimidated with my level of understanding when it comes to, things of the spirit, and me wanting to be in entrepreneurship. I'm a leader, and I'm not going to dumb myself down to make you feel comfortable in your skin. So I needed someone who was going to be okay with that.
With your drive.
With my drive, yes.
Yeah.
And so on one of our first dates, actually, this was maybe the third one, and I was starting to like him, but I was still having flashbacks from the relationship that I just got out of, and I was like, you know what, Lord, I'm probably just going to pump the brakes because it's too soon. I just finished this situation. So on this date, I was actually planning on, asking him maybe we need to slow down a little bit and maybe break things off. So when I meet him at his home, I get this really crazy, sharp stomach pain. And it hurts so bad that it makes me buckle and collapse. And so now I'm on his floor in tears.
You mean physically
physically
on the floor?
on his floor in tears because it just happened out of nowhere.
Okay.
And he was in the bathroom getting ready because we were getting ready to go on a date. And he hears me crying. I'm like, and he comes running in. He's like, "What's wrong? What happened?" I said, "I don't know. I have tears running down my face." I said, "I need some medicine. Like, I'm in pain. Like, it hurts so bad." And so, a friend of mine, a few years back, before I had gotten into either of the relationships, we used to have a saying that I want a man that's so saved that when I get hurt, he don't go grab the medicine. He come grab the blessed oil, lay hands on me. It was just an inside joke with us. And so he came to me. He was like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "I just need some medicine. Do you got some Tylenol? Something, maybe something strong." And I hear him fumbling through his medicine cabinet. And he comes out with blessed oil dripping from his hands. And he lays hands on where I'm at and he begins to pray. And God said, "So is that specific enough?" I said, "Boy, you might be it." And so that's what made me really pay attention to him. That's really what did it for me.
Yeah.
So are you saying that God really will send you what you're asking for?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, he definitely did in my case.
Okay, great. And what about you, Chris?
I wasn't
Pastor
that spiritual.
Chris?
I wasn't that spiritual. So like, all that's real
Listen.
deep in spiritual. I wasn't that when it comes to
I had
because I grew
things.
up. I grew up in church, so I really didn't need the whole big revelation. What I was watching was more practical things, like how she handled business. Was she a person that was going to contribute to peace and tranquility, or was she going to add to more stress? So was she going to be a benefit, or was she going to be a bill? You know, so sometimes
a benefit or a bill.
Sometimes thank you. See, he's right there. We already communicated. He knows exactly where. So I was watching.
You are a little bit outnumbered, but go ahead.
I know, but I'm standing on my own 2 feet. I'm standing on my own 2 feet. So that's what I was looking for. So at that time in my life, I think I was still being the youth pastor. I was still in school. I had a lot of things. So what I didn't need was extra baggage or extra drama. And so what I was looking for, someone that could complement that. They didn't have to be super saved. They didn't have to know all the these and thous. And I got enough of that. Like
so they didn't have to know Genesis to Revelation.
Oh, absolutely
and didn't have to know all that.
Like if your idea of a date is a revival, we were not going to work. It's because that's not a date to me. That's church. Right. And so like even when we were dating, I told her up front there were some things I was very blunt. Like, listen, if we ever go to a church service, we're not on a date. So if you see those guys who are booed up at church service, that's not my idea of a date, because church is for church. What we do is what we do. So I don't need to, like, we're not playing Kirk Franklin when we go on a date. It's not happening. So
are you telling me you laid all this out before? So
I put it up front.
And even if she said, well,
I was okay
you were
with
willing
that.
to let go.
I was a grown man, so I was okay with that. So like, I mean, she was, she's fine. She's a pageant queen. She had all these things going for her. But at that time, at the moment of my life, I was like, can you bring me peace? That was my number one thing.
So is that something that most men?
Absolutely, because fine ain't everything. Like, you have women that look good, and some of them, most of that is filters, and some of that is like makeup and witchcraft and all that kind of stuff. Weave sewing, like you gotta throw water in their face and make sure that's really their skin tone. So what I'm looking for is, one, can I have an intelligent conversation with you?
Okay.
Two, can you engage in any environment and not embarrass me? Practical things.
Okay.
Three, can you bring me peace? Like, you may not even know how to balance a budget, but can you know that we do have to have a budget? Those type of things. But what drew me into her was really what sealed the deal for me was how she treated her daughter. So that was important for me, because I'm thinking, I don't have the time to date just because we're dating. I don't have time to spend, when you date as a man, you almost have to budget for that. Okay, how many days I'm gonna go? Okay, I got a budget. If she's gonna drink too much wine, she's gonna ask for more food. I got to budget all that.
It's a whole expense.
It's a whole expense. It's a budget, brothers. If you don't have a budget line item, you need to get one for your date, so that way you're not frustrated when she drink up all the wine in the whole restaurant. And then
you budgeted for it.
You got to budget for it. So
and then she orders the most expensive thing on the menu.
You got to budget for it. So I knew that her favorite restaurant was McCormick and Smith. So I knew up front what I was getting myself into. So I had to make my budget for the person I was going to date, and knew that it was sustainable. Okay, that means there's going to be some times where I want to go buy clothes, or I want to invest in a business or things like that. But if I know that her bar is McCormick and Smith, either I raise the bar to my expectation or I go a different route. So I told her up front, hey, this is who I am. But I knew, like I said, what attracted me to her was, see, the deal for me was how she treated her daughter. How her daughter was a joy. Like, she was very personable, intelligent, sweet, and how she disciplined her daughter. She didn't let her daughter run her. Those were the things I was looking for, because, you know, I grew up in a very strong household. Both the males and the females, especially the women in my family, are very strong. So I had to make sure that when you met my mother, she wasn't going to make you run. And you got to stand up to her and put your feet flat-foot and stand up like, I'm the woman of the house, not you.
Yeah.
Those things were important to me, more practical. So it wasn't spiritual. I didn't pray. I didn't fast. I didn't go travail. I didn't throw no sackcloth over me.
I did. Because listen, I did.
You
Lord,
did.
I'm not wasting my time with nobody else that don't deserve my time.
I didn't need no super churchy church girl. I'm good. There has to be a balance, because I was so much in church. I didn't need somebody that wanted to be in church as much as I do, because then we would never get to know who we are.
Right.
So I need to balance.
So that is a mistake that I think some couples make, especially when they are both believers and both are committed to ministry.
Yeah, I don't need you to shout and dance.
Okay.
We got that. Like, I can see that later on. That's fine.
Okay. So then you both, I think that the first thing with any couple, when you meet someone, is attraction. But then, like you said, after attraction can't be everything, because you don't live with attraction. You don't really date attraction. That's just the first step. Like, okay, you look good to me, all that, so let's get to know it's getting to know each other.
Yeah.
And so what I hear you saying is being honest up front. This is what I'm looking for, and this is what I want. And that way you don't have to waste, as you say, you don't have to waste your time.
Yeah.
So what have you learned first? I mean, you got through that and you decided you both are the one, and then you get married, so it's been 8 years.
Yeah.
And surely you've learned some things in 8 years.
Yeah.
Communication is key.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Communication and compromise.
And
is
compromise.
Yeah, you got to.
Yeah.
Like, and then knowing that the person that you dated is not the person that you're going to marry. They're going to mature. And
That
so
is
I know
so on point.
Yeah.
That the person that you marry is not necessarily the person that you live with as time goes on.
Absolutely.
Because you both mature, you change, you may be going down one path, and then life may throw a detour. So what's important then with this mate that you have? Is it the ability to
Pivot.
turn or pivot when it's
absolutely.
time to pivot?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so, and that comes with communication, like being honest with each other. So, like, if there's something that I'm struggling with, or there is some issue that I have to be able to be vulnerable enough to trust her. And so one of the biggest things that a man can say, in my opinion, to a woman is not that he loves her, is that he trusts her. Because if I can trust you, that means I can be vulnerable with you. And
that's
men
so
will
cute.
protect their vulnerability more than they'll protect anything. Because I have to be able to share with you when I feel like I don't have it all together, and be able to share with you in that vulnerable state. And most of the time, what I'm checking for when I was dating was, does she have the maturity to see the real me? Not the me that I'm presenting, or her perception of her idea of what I could be. I don't want to be someone's Build-A-Bear. You know, you have this concept of what.
Doing that again.
I don't have time. So, like, that vulnerability is key, and that comes with communication. So what I've learned from her is how she will take no matter what I've shared with her, and she will not have judgment. She will have accountability, but not judgment, which is different. Like, I'm gonna hold you accountable to what you said, but I'm not going to use that against you. And that's what grew my love for her, for me. Like, being able to be vulnerable and trust her with conversation, trust her with the times where I'm frustrated, and know that there's not going to be a judgment, but there still will be accountability because I don't need nobody to call on me.
Right. I think that is so so important in a relationship, because you talked a lot about being vulnerable, and for men, that's a big step.
Yeah, I'm out for you.
So when your spouse can support you when you're in a relationship and you can be vulnerable, it helps that relationship grow.
Yeah,
like when you come home from work and maybe all frazzled, and she might say, "Well, what's going on? What's wrong? Oh, I got it. It's all right." That's not vulnerability.
Yeah, and that
Then
doesn't
there's
work.
There's something in communication, or there's something there, or maybe he just need time to go in his cave to just kind of process.
Yes.
And then when he's ready to talk. But to never share vulnerabilities, I think that harms in the long run the relationships. And it also I think it also kind of halts the process of trust, because trust is built over time.
Yeah.
It's not always just right there at the beginning.
Yeah, I made it work a little bit for
Did you?
Yes. Yeah. And I think had it not been for one, the prayer that I prayed in the beginning, and him being everything that I asked for, he was. And I tried to go all off script, like it wasn't all, he needs to be able to pray, Father, and because if you're building a life with someone, like, Lord, he needs to be attractive, he needs to be good with my daughter. I know I got a daughter, but I don't want him to have no kids because I don't want to deal with baby mama drama. Like, and I was very specific. And so that helped me to be more patient. And then when he also confirmed through the prayer, when I had that, falling out, that confirmation helped with the patience, and it also helped to mature me for the relationship. Because had I not had that confirmation, I probably would not have been mature enough to walk through certain things. And so it was definitely, especially like the first 2 to 3 years, it was definitely difficult. I don't even think we like really began like courting, like really blissfully enjoying each other until maybe year 4.
Year 4, year 5,
Yeah.
So what you're saying is it takes time.
It takes time
for that bonding to grow.
Yeah. Like becoming one is a whole process.
Yes,
You're
it is.
taking two
Yes, it is.
individuals,
Yes, it is.
and not a half of a person and a half of a person
but
to equate a whole. Two whole
people.
individuals to merge them together to become one. That's not going to be something that's done overnight. No.
So even though you had groundwork things were there, you still had work.
Yes.
That's a
I
process.
think the groundwork, it kind of helps solidify that this is
it does.
This is my mate. This is who I want. So okay, now the work begins. It's like getting that dream job. But then when you get it,
now the work begins.
And
that's what it is.
The orientation, you got to work on it.
Yeah. It's continual work.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Marriage is not something that you ever get the opportunity to coast in.
That's good. Good.
You never get to coast in marriage.
Have your hand on the wheel all the time.
It's always intentional.
That is so true, because this year 2021 is our 45th.
Wow.
Y'all see it?
That's amazing. Like, that's goals.
It's 45 years. So what you're saying about
y'all got married when y'all were 2.
Actually, we were quite young. We were 22, which today I would not advise anybody to get married at 22.
It's different now.
Yeah, I really do. I think that's too young. And I think that you need to first kind of know what you want and kind of find yourself first before you pull somebody into a relationship with you. How old were you all when you got married?
I was 26.
You had to be 26. You was a month younger. We wouldn't even had a date.
Yeah.
So like I knew I had an age limit, like because by that time I was 35.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was like I couldn't date somebody too young because I was an educator. So just not to tell her age, but like my first year teaching, she was still in high school. So I was a youth pastor. And so when I realized her age, if she was like a month or two younger, she would be like the same age as like my first set of students.
Oh, I see. So it was a mental thing.
It was a mental thing. Like,
thing.
like I can't, like, it felt too much like that. So
one advantage I believe that you all have or had at that time was your age.
Yes.
You had experienced some things and you were more mature. You were into whatever your careers and all of that. So I think that kind of that helps to kind of
it definitely helps to do the pre-work to really discover and learn who you are
first.
Heal. You need to become one whole person. One thing that was very important for the both of us was to not come into this relationship blaming each other for other people's mistakes and problems. So before you even consider it, make sure that you're completely healed and that you've done the work on yourself, that you know who you are and what you want to even consider a serious type of relationship like marriage.
That's
you don't
good
get
advice.
to quit.
That's good advice. What advice would you give?
Yeah, I would agree. You can't allow your triggers to cause you to have pushback with people, because a lot of times it's our subconscious, it's our experiences, and someone might say something that trigger you and you don't even know why. You have to be honest with yourself and know how you need to work on yourself before you want to date. So I knew there was a time period. So like, for example, by the time I met Monica, this would be my second marriage. And so I learned by talking to a lot of older friends that most men who get freshly divorced, you need about like 2.5 years to like readjust, because anyone you date within that 2.5 year mark is going to be a casualty of war, because you don't know who you are anymore. So like, you've had that time where you were married. Now you have to transition to that mind frame that, okay, now I'm single. What does that mean? Financially, what does that mean? Okay, now healing after that experience. Okay, now I think I'm ready to date. And so that way, by the time I meet someone like Monica, I wasn't holding her hostage from past experiences from the past relationship. And I think that's important. Always know that you have time to heal and process from your past experiences before you throw somebody in.
So that you don't hold that new person hostage.
Oh, good, yeah.
One of the there's just a couple of things that I just want to mention, and then I want you all to close us out with one important thing that you've learned in these 8 years. But in order to, there are just some, I would say, some tips in relationships to keep it going, to keep it fresh, or to keep it strong. I know that we have to be intentional about the things we do, like supporting one another, which you're talking about in your goals, your aspirations, supporting one another in that. And just doing regular just because acts of kindness or acts of thoughtfulness. We do it for other people. We do it for our friends. We do it for people on their jobs. But what about your spouse? Just because, no reason. I mean, just because you're you. I may get a little. And the thing is, it doesn't have to be something that's very expensive or all of that. I mean, you know what your spouse likes, but just being thoughtful enough, let me get this for her, or him, just because. And then I think it's vitally important that you nurture intimacy in marriage, that especially with careers and then having children.
Absolutely.
And your children alone can take up all of your time, and you're running here, you're running there, you've got family, you've got a whole host of things to do. But the most important thing is keeping that marriage strong. So you cannot forget about nurturing intimacy in marriage. And I'm not talking about sex all the time. I'm talking about just loving kinds of things. That even if it's just having a popcorn night where we sit and together and cuddle under a blanket and just watch a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
We do that pretty regularly. We actually have Friday family movie nights. So every Friday we do that. But even still, like, because we have busy schedules, we know how to get time in with each other. Like, we still away moments. So when we're able to get the kids to sleep,
yes,
you know, even if he's working on a sermon and typing, he'll allow me to like lay up under him and watch TV while he's doing that. That's important. And so we've learned how to still away moments. So
I like that. Still away moments.
Still away moments.
So let me put that in there. Have some still away moments.
Still away moments. You got to.
So last words for us.
Marriage is what you make it. So
That's good.
for all my men who are very business oriented, it's almost like you have to do your checks and balances. And so this is your biggest investment.
Yes, I like that. Say that again. This is what?
I figured you like it. This is your biggest and greatest investment.
And I always give you a return on investment.
All right. And so
Good stock right here.
I walked right into that. I did. I walked right into it. I knew
Yes,
I did.
you did. Yes, you did.
So with that, there always has to be checks and balances, making sure that you're taking care of what you've invested in, like making sure you get feedback results. And when you do that, you will have a lot more peace.
That is good.
That is
That
really
is really good.
I've been doing this for a while now.
Ooh, that was really good.
Well, thank you, Maddens. Thank you so
Appreciate
much
it.
for your time.
Thank you so much
it.
for having us.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.